Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts, Season 21, Episode 1. Since we are now in 2021, Happy New Year, everybody. And from the Hashknife Ranch, we hope all of you have a wonderful upcoming year. 2020 was clearly not the best year for everybody, but we're going to try and take on this next one, and hopefully it turns out better. So
Why?
with that,
What happened in 2020?
I think everybody feels that way.
Didn't
They just
affect
want
me
to
a bit.
they just want to forget about it. But
Yeah.
and anyway, today we're gonna go over brands, and I've got my little script here. And just so everybody who is not familiar, I'm Calen Carpenter. With me is my dad, Brandon Carpenter. We're both from the Hashknife Ranch. I am currently living in Kentucky for the time being, and Dad is at the house right now. And you can find the parents and the ranch on the Hashknife Ranch and Enterprises on Facebook, and you can find me on Twitter at HashKnifeKid, and then of course we are on YouTube at just plain Hashknife Ranch. You will find the Hashknife brand, which we will go over today, and you can find that everywhere we go. We emblazon that as much as we possibly can and share that. And again, always like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Yep, YouTube. Like, comment, share on Facebook, and pass the word along to all your friends. And with that, we'll go into brands, how to read them, what they look like, and kind of explain things. And I'll pass it to Dad.
Well, part of the reason the brands came up, you were just home for Christmas, got home, last night?
Yep.
We dropped you off yesterday morning. You were here for a couple weeks, so we've been uh, sorely not doing our hangouts because we live in the end of a freaking wire that is the size of a human hair, and we get the latest, smallest little dribble of internet connection. So it's when you see a screen freeze up, it's usually because, I don't know, maybe a bird landed near the ground and it disturbed the underground wire on my end, because we are literally at the end and don't have a lot of good service. I think we're scheduled to in about 18 months or so that they're going to do an upgrade
Yeah.
here. The
Because
ranch is actually pretty good, but which is amazing because the ranch is way more remote than we are here.
right, absolutely. But I was gonna say, when that bird jumps on the ground, it knocks your 5 megabytes a second down to 3, and then it bumps back up to 4, and then it hovers there for a little bit.
That's about right. Anyhow, yeah, so you were home, and while you were home, we got a slew of mail from the Montana Department of Livestock. Hold on. That's the only thing that's keeping me going this morning. Anyhow, it informed us that we needed to re-register our Montana brands that we have, every one of them. So um, those are good for 10 years. You pay a fee on the every decade, starting with one. So 2021, you have a whole year. Pardon me. Huh. Something's in my way there. Yeah, you've got a full year to renew your brand, and if you don't, then that brand can be up for grabs by anyone. And so you want to make sure you stay on top of that. We've got a number of brands. God, how many now?
I wrote down 6. Well,
6 or 7.
without Grandma, it's 5. But
Yeah, my dad and mom's brand. She has that exclusively herself still. She's got a few cows and a horse or two, so she, is actively using that brand, and so yeah, she'll have to take care of that. But I can sign on those brands for her. I can, sell, buy, do anything we need to do for her with those brands. So she'll have to renew that as well. But that 1 year can go pretty fast if you forget about it. It used to be fairly inexpensive. Now it's up there about $175 per brand, which still is inexpensive. When you prorate that over 10 years, you're looking at less than $20 a year. So it's not bad. But when you've got 6 of them or 7 of them to renew, yeah, that's a little costly. But it's kind of the cost of doing business. And in some ways, it's a cost of having a heritage as well. So there's a couple brands that have not been purchased or passed on from our family, but they're good brands, so you don't want to let them go, and we use them. So there's that too. Getting a good brand is a hard thing to do. A 2-character brand or one iron brand is very, very hard to come by. The brand office or the Department of Livestock doesn't like two-letter brands. They want something with a quarter circle under it or a bar or something. So it's a 3-character brand. It is much harder to
Duplicate.
defaced or duplicate or
Yeah.
change into something else. But still, that's kind of their take on it. They're going to be the street cop on who gets what, and they certainly don't like the Hashknife. I guess we could start with that one. We've talked about the Hashknife in a previous hangout, but they do not like it because it is a symbol brand. You know, it is a symbol, not necessarily two characters or 3 characters. So they don't have it.
I think to kind of go down that road too. Well, I think terminology is probably the best way to start this, because you're saying symbol brand, and people. I know we were discussing with Suzanne when I first got back home was, well, what exactly is a symbol brand? Well, it's just that it's a symbol. It's not a letter or a character of some sort, or a number. What it is you look at a heart, that's a classic symbol. A diamond, a classic symbol. We have a different symbol. It's called the Hashknife because it represents what essentially everybody always termed a cookie. The cook that came with cattle drives, or the wives that were with the essentially the farmers and ranchers who were wanting to come west. They had what was called a Hashknife, and you'd rock it back and forth, and you could use it kind of like you were saying, either on meat and whatnot, but frankly, it was mostly for cutting up veggies and potatoes, and you can make your hash browns. Hence
Yeah,
the Hashknife.
they didn't pack a lot of should we say green vegetables with them. Pardon me. But potatoes will keep for quite a while. They can resupply, or could resupply with them on wagons, and it's used very much like an ulu, which is a native Alaskan or Inuit type people's knife. And if you look at some of like Clovis Man, actually used pieces of obsidian and shaped very similar to the same. They had a place to hang on to it, and then just a curve that come, off the edge. You can flesh with it. You can cut meat. You can cut anything. It's a very
Chop with
sharp,
it.
sharp tool, and rolling it back and forth with that edge is a very efficient use of it. So it's a symbol of that. Our brand is, and then with having that type of brand, you want to hang on to, or it will be retired as a historical symbol brand. You might find that in the Montana Historical Society at some point or some time if we let that go, and we don't want to do that because they want, like we said before, they don't want to allow me to register that brand on a location on horses or cattle, which is stupid because we do it now, but they're just trying to squeeze you out so you can't use it.
Right. Well, and there's another thing too, is to let everybody know, the Hashknife is actually a fairly popular symbol brand in American West. And if you look it up, you can find, I've done it myself, you can find several Hashknife brands throughout the Southwest, and they're shaped different. And as we go through these brands over today, I will pop them up on the screen so people can see how we're referencing how the terminology to lay them out and whatnot is. But the Hashknife, our Hashknife, is significantly different because it's actually closed, whereas a lot of the southern Hashknives, it's like a T, and then it's got an open-ended, it's like a bar with a loop and then another bar. But I'm not going to show that up there. I don't know if there's copyrights and stuff like that. I don't want to get us into trouble for any stupid reason. But you can look it up. It's, I think, Arizona and maybe New Mexico and possibly Southwest Texas. They've got a lot of Hashknives in that area, and you can find them pretty easy.
I think the original Hashknife Ranch in Arizona was there were some literally gunfights, some pretty bloody happenings went on in the mid to late 1800s there, right after they settled in. It was a big place, a lot of guys on it, and so there's some history there too. But there's another couple of Hashknife looking brands in Montana that are near us actually, but are shaped, the bottom of it shaped similarly, but not the same. And instead of a T, it just has kind of a knob that is outlined. And all of those brands, how you read them, I think that's kind of where we're headed with this or should head with this, is that they are under a cleave section, as in a cleaver. So anything that is kind of like that, then they will put that as a cleave. So guys will look at our brand at the brand office when you take something in, and they'll try to look you up, and they'll look it up by the brand generally first, and they'll struggle for a while, and particularly the new ones or people that know us, they know what it is, and they'll go right to it. But some of these younger guys, I'll have to tell them, I said, you need to look under the cleave section, and it just says cleave, and then they look at and try to match what the symbol is, and find your name, and then, or the ranch's name, and then you can do business after that. Say who's okay, who can sign on that brand, who can do transactions with cattle or horses on that, using that brand. So it may be kind of a pain for them. You know what? Not my problem. My heritage is more important than their ease of paperwork.
Yeah. Well, so I think we'll keep going down this road. The terminology and how to discuss things when in terms of brands. You go, how to read it, first of all, is left to right, top to bottom. And you can read it. There's a lot of terminology. We were just discussing this beforehand, before going recording this. There is essentially a key at the beginning of the livestock recording book, I guess is how you would say it. And
yeah, or now with everything digital, you can go right to, for instance, here it's Montana Department of Livestock. Go to their site, and it'll say active brands, and I think there's a link in how to record or how to read a brand. Literally a link there, and it gives a sheet on. I think it's a one-page deal. Just gives examples on what they would be called, using the principles of how to.
I need to try and get hot coffee in my mug here. See if I can do it without spilling.
Pour fast.
Nope, I spilled. just let it happen. Whatever.
We're pretty loosey-goosey this morning.
Yeah.
This isn't real tight ship we're running.
That's all right. I think people will probably enjoy it. At least I hope they do. Man, it is all over. Good thing I live alone.
I got a pup dog here that wants out.
Oh no. Anyway, so going down that road, you read it top to bottom, or left to right, top to bottom, and when you specifically talk about the Hashknife, because it is a simple brand, how do you read it?
Well, again, if you're looking from left to right, you're going to run into the cleave portion, or the blade portion, which looks just like a curved blade, and it looks like a quarter moon on its side.
And again, we'll show it.
Okay.
So I'll put it in the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen, so everybody can reference it while we discuss it.
There you go. But you're going to read that from left to right first. You're going to run in the first thing as you scan across with your eye and you read it, and you look at left to right. It is going to say, "Oh, there's the cleave." So it's a cleave brand, and then you match what that says, or what it is, with a T handle on the top of it with that cleave. So it's called by the first thing it is. So if you take, for instance, your brand, a really super nice brand, we've got some really nice brands. I mean, I gotta say they're really nice.
Well, and that's also a little bit of heritage too. I got that. I think I was in third grade when you were able to pick up mine and Braden's for me. Braden was in first grade, I was in third, and we've had it ever since. And Braden's was never in the family prior to that, but mine was. And it's the Lazy 9 Hanging 6 is how you read it. And it was in the Fisk side of the family, and we lost it for a little while, and then you were able to pick it back up.
Actually, we didn't lose it. Our cousins, Celeste and Amber, Tim Fisk's two oldest daughters, share that brand together.
Okay.
And what I discovered was they didn't want to let it go, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Because I did ask them. I said, "Are you going to do anything with the brand?" And they said, "Well, no, we don't know. I don't think so. But you know what? Things can change." And So I thought, okay, that's cool. And then I got to researching a little bit and went, hey, this brand is available on other locations. So I petitioned the brand office, and because we were in the same county as that brand was registered in, then they said, no, we probably can't do that unless they are okay with it. And so we had to they had to sign a release that they were fine with us having that brand on a different location, different side of the cow than what they had, even though it was in the same county. It's like, so I guess the brand office is probably concerned with people, thieving small calves. Not that it would make any difference. You could put any brand on a calf that's slick.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, again, it's just kind of some bureaucracy there. But so it is the brand, but it is on a different location. And so that's all that amounted to. But
And that's
beautiful brand.
and that's something that we were going to discuss is same brand, different locations for different owners. So exact same brand that I own is what our cousins have, but they just happen to be on different places on the animal. We looked up mine the other day because mine has, since I have had it, it's never been on an animal that we have had.
No, that's not true. No, when you were in college, I branded a steer with your brand.
Okay.
You don't remember that?
No. Anyway.
Because that come through the sale barn, I was kind of impressed with Zach, or not Zach, but Greg Goggins. You and your brother branded each one of yours with that. And here's how people recognize that. They recognize the name. And you had a steer going through for sale, had your lazy 9 hanging 6 on it on the hip. He's reading it, and the bidding wasn't going. It was okay, but he said literally, he goes, "Come on, guys, this is somebody's college money. Can you help them out a little bit?" And he did that with both of you guys because he saw your brands and saw who you were. So yeah,
Yeah.
we've used it. They just haven't used it a lot.
Well, and that also goes back to Montana being a small community. I mean, granted, we're in the same county and stuff, but you get to know people and they try and help you out a little bit too. Like, hey, listen, he's going to school. Help him
Yeah,
out. Throw him a bone.
they know your circumstances. I think you might have been a sophomore, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah, but yeah, he was a couple grades ahead of you, I think, or so.
Yeah, he was about 3 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I was his center my freshman year in high school. So.
But don't tell me we don't use your stinking brand.
Okay. All right. So we did it. We did it once. Sorry. Anywho, so that's mine, and then we also have the hay hook, which we don't collectively own, but Grandma does. And
let's go back to your brand just for one moment. The reason why it is such a nice brand.
Oh yeah.
It's a single iron. The 6, when you look at, I'll do this backwards, but when you have a 6, that also looks like an upside down 9, right?
Right.
So when you lay that brand on and you lay it to the side with it open like that, you're going to have a lazy 9, and then the other one hangs down on it like this.
Yeah.
So
and again, we'll have it up so people can see it.
Great. But a single iron, you put the 9 on.
Yep.
Pull it off, turn it 90 degrees or nearly 90. It has to be placed properly, and then put that on. So beautiful 1-iron brand that does make a 2-character brand, but you're not running back and forth with 2 irons, which takes time when you brand, and it's a pain, but
right.
Is what it is. But yeah, nice because of that. Anyway, the hay hook.
So again, I have a brand, single iron. Like you said, nice. It's beautiful. It's a good look to it as well. It's open so it doesn't blotch on the animal and stuff like that. Then our cousins have it on a different location. Now the hay hook, we call it that like we would a symbol brand, but it's actually an inverted T lazy U.
Connected on top.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that Grandma owns, and that goes on, I know it's right hip on cattle, and on horses, is it
right shoulder?
Offside shoulder. Okay.
Yep. Offside shoulder.
So then Uncle Justin, who's your brother, my uncle, he is the son to Grandma, to make sure that everybody understands the connection here. He has the exact same brand as Grandma, but it's in a different location. I don't know his locations.
I'd have to look it up, but I know the cattle, it's on a left shoulder.
Left shoulder on cattle, huh?
Yeah, and I think it's on a on a left thigh on horses. It's in
Okay.
an odd location because
The
it's
thigh
really
for horses makes sense. I remember that. But
yeah, and I both think it's both left side, shoulder for cows and thigh for horses. But that brand was basically dad's or your grandpa's initials. Really close. It's a U, but it looks like a C when it goes on.
yeah.
So Tex Carpenter, he had that brand. I can remember when I was a little kid, he had to wait for that to come open, and he had to go to the Helena brand office and go through their books like in it'd have been about 19, oh my God, 71, 72, because they wait for a year for those brands to be renewed, and then the next year they come available after time. And if you go to the brand office, usually you can pick something up that's decent that somebody has let go. And he did that. Went to Helena, had to spend a day in the brand office. I did the same thing when I looked for your brother for Braden's brand, um, and picked that up. But the brand he had before that was a god awful, and he hated that brand. It was 7/11. So it had a
Oh,
big
that's horrible. That's so many
seven
characters.
slash and 11. Oh, it barbecue a calf by the time it was on a
Yeah.
rib. Horrendous brand. And he didn't use that very dang long, and he got rid of it. And he was looking hard. He was trying to come up with brand combinations and submit them, and they shoot him down. So he finally just had to go to the Helena office. And then, you're talking late 60s, early 70s when he finally got that.
Now,
Uh,
looking at that though, what's nice about the 7/11 is it's one iron. You could make it a one iron brand, but it's gonna one take you forever, and two, there's so many characters on there that, like you said, you're using up where let's say it's on a rib, you're using up half the rib just to put the brand on.
yeah, you'd have to in order to use one iron, it would take forever and you'd basically be doing something illegal. You'd be running that thing on.
Yeah.
You'd be, putting with a single bar, you put the seven part of the seven on, and then you just run or draw the other part. And it's just, oh yeah, and that's illegal. You can't do that. You can't use a running iron, as I call it, which is just a piece of iron that's heated up. Guys used to do that when they wrestled. They would use a cinch ring. And if you had a cinch ring and a set of tongs and a saddlebag, probably a pretty good idea you're rustling cattle.
Yeah.
So, you can hang for that. So running irons are illegal, or running that iron on there is technically illegal. You're supposed to heat that character for that. So you would have a 7, a big slash, and then another bar that you'd put the 11 on with. And it's just, oh God, I remember seeing that on a few calves, and it looked like it went on great when it's first on, and it's like,
Right.
well, it's a little big, but then pretty soon, this cow's or calf or steer is moving sideways because half their height is going. Not that bad, but they're a little light on that side. Um, so yeah, that was really good brand. It goes on clean. It's a open brand. It doesn't blotch.
Talking about the hay hook specifically.
Yeah, the hay hook
Yeah.
specifically, because it does not have enough heat in the bottom of the U. That part is, you could get some heat there where you're transmitting heat from one side to the other, just transferring it can close down, and you're really heating up that whole corner, which can cause a lot of scarring and make it look, and they call it blotching. The hash knife, you got to be very careful about putting that on. It has to be done with 2 irons or it will blotch.
Right.
And but so if you do
Especially
that,
where there's intersections is probably the best way to put it. Like the T, if you
yep,
hold the T too hard, where it comes together, that cross part, you can blotch in the corners. And then where you're saying the cleave, where it comes at the edges, it can blotch because it's so close together. So what we normally do is we have essentially a rocking T that you put on first, and then you
right.
finish it with the underside cleave to finish it out.
Yeah, but if you had that cleave all in one piece, that whole thing would blotch. I
Yeah.
saw that on a horse one time, and it was like, that didn't work,
Yep.
because it was attempted to be put on with a single brand that somebody was putting that on for grandpa, and is like, or my grandpa, and I was like, oh, that didn't work. And
Well,
so,
and especially on a horse with the thin hide, whereas
yeah,
cattle you might be able to get away with it, but
Well, and when you build
horses.
the irons for anytime you have a connection like that, like on that T for that, for instance, I will notch that out so that those don't, you're welding them together. But then there's a notch. I leave a piece of metal carved out of that so that it does not touch, but the bottom part of your T from your top part is about that far apart. It just cut that out, and that helps a lot so that
Yeah.
that heat doesn't transfer quite as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, and then moving on, we were talking one iron brands, Mom's Overstep that we normally use on horses that we didn't raise ourselves, but we sell. It's just a quarter circle, right? That's essentially how you read it.
Yeah, well, and then there's different, which they don't even get to on your brands when they describe them, like that. If you put that up there, uh, that's called a quarter circle null.
Okay.
And so it's two quarter circles standing, and it's kind of it's kind of like this. Let me get the camera
We'll
right.
we'll we'll
You'll
reference
have
it.
it, but it looks like a hoof prints, two hoof
Right.
prints. And so I call it the overstep, or we call it the overstep, or it looks like a horse has overstepped on their hind foot.
Which is a gated horse thing. We've kind of put
Yeah,
our own spin on it, essentially.
exactly. Yeah, and so if I was to tell them it was the overstep, they'd look at me like I had three heads.
Yeah.
But
What is that? Because
yeah,
first of all, there's not a lot of gated horse people in
there's not a
Montana.
lot of horse people that know what the hell an overstep is.
Well, that's also true too, but it's just the minimal amount of people that would know what we're talking about. They would
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I picked that brand up, and it wasn't even available for cattle when I picked that up for horse. I looked at that brand and went, "Oh my God, that's a beautiful brand." And I
Yeah, it
built
is.
irons, one iron, single iron and it has both of those together, and
Yep.
you just put it on, and it goes on beautifully. A beautiful brand. But it wasn't available for cows at the time. Then it became available. They don't care whether or not you have a brand or not. And I think if nobody had brands, it would be just less work for them. You see my disdain for the Helena office of, I think most of the people that work for the outfit have the same disdain. But
Yeah.
so somebody else picked up the cow location on that brand, and so unless they leave it or drop it or something, um, we can't use it on cows. But we've got so many brands that there's no reason not to, and it's really just for horses anyway.
Yeah.
So not a big
I,
deal.
I was gonna say there's no reason we would need to put it on cattle.
No.
Um, but yeah, it's a good one for oh geez, it is a good one for the horses because then especially for us, we can differentiate when people say, well, this came from your genetic line. We're like, no, actually it didn't. We went out and we bought it.
Right.
It's not from our genetic line, but we did train it. So the training is ours. The animal is not necessarily ours.
Yeah, and we want to be honest with people about that. That's like, yeah, we didn't raise this horse. We're not trying to pass this off as one of our horses. But you're right. We didn't have enough horses, and so we purchased a young horse, untrained, and then trained it, and looked at its bloodlines and looked at phenotype. Kind of the same thing you would with cows. We should really do that with horses sometime. Kind of go through that. But anyway, uh, yeah, that brand's a sweet brand, nice brand. Your mother's got that, and then I guess Braden's got two brands.
Yep.
The
And
one,
that's what we were going to get to next. He's got one that's not was not originally in the family, and that's the one he got when he was in first grade. And then
yeah,
he inherited the second one from grandma, correct? Or well, technically from grandpa through grandma.
actually, yeah, from Grandpa Wayne, my grandfather, Dad's dad, and then when he died, or well, I think Mom and Dad bought that brand from him before he died,
Mm-hmm.
and then uh, they used it, and it's still it's on a cow out there, and then he Mom gave that to Braden, or Mom and Dad did, and her name is still on it. So Mom and Braden own it together, and it is Z Hangin' V. So when you put that up, you'll see how that comes up.
And
Uh,
again, where the parts where you have to worry, does he first of all, is he able to do it a single iron, or does he have to do two separate?
It's better to do that with two separate
Yeah.
irons. It's such
But
a it's kind of long from one corner to the next.
yeah. Well, and the
So
other thing too is I think the intersections where the Z's come in and then the bottom of the V, again, you have to be careful because you hold it too long and you can blotch those out and then it becomes a giant mess, especially with the Z area.
yeah, and again, because that's a tight angle there, but if you cut those and relieve that where the heat's not directly onto them right then, it makes a tremendous difference. That brand will go on very, very nice on horses or cattle.
Yeah, and I've seen it, especially on the cows. It looks really good. I don't think I've seen it on a horse yet.
There's a couple of horses that have had it on it. You just probably just don't remember. You were fairly little because Grandpa was using it. But my grandpa got that from a guy named Tim Connolly, who worked for old J.R. Sterling, Grandpa's stepdad, and so lived just up the creek there. And when he either sold out or got old enough and wasn't going to use it anymore, then I think he thought a lot of Grandpa, and I think he gave it to him or Grandpa bought it from him. I'm not sure which now. I just know he acquired it from Tim Connolly, and a guy I'd never met. He was gone before I was born, because it was a guy that was born in the late 1800s, early 1900s at the latest, most
Hmm.
likely late 1800s.
Okay, so that's the ZV, and then Braden got the UV, U crazy V, and we'll get the terminology again. The U crazy V when he was in first grade, and again, that's a really good one because it's an open U with the crazy V touching it, and the only part you really have to worry about on that is the bottom of the V. But going back to what you're saying, as long as you cut a little relief, it's an easy brand to put on.
Well, and I've put that. I built a set of irons for the horse, uh, or his horses, and that goes on in one piece. So
Oh,
that
okay.
we are all in one on that because you can do it and can relieve it like that, and it goes on very, very nice. He's got that on a couple horses. It's really a sweet, sweet brand as well. The terminology there though is going to be a little different because the U is pretty, you know,
Standard.
standard, and I was looking for two U's or two V's so you can do it with one iron. And the
Yeah.
best I could find for him at that time was a U with his crazy V. The terminology, the brand office would say U with with a
Lazy V
lazy
to the top to the
lazy
right.
V top to the right.
Yeah.
And there's other terminology, crazy V. You just understand that it's, instead of lazy laying to the left, it just lays to the right.
And how
And so,
we've always said lazy and crazy. Lazy
right,
being left, the top of it is to the left.
right,
Crazy with an R is top to the right. That's
just
pretty
the
easy to
opposite.
put. Like put your hands up. Oh, there's the L. But
Right.
um, I guess the next question, because I didn't realize this until a couple years ago, of there's lazy and then there's lazy top to the right. Like, okay, that's dumb because I've always grown up with it lazy or crazy. You just got to
Right.
enunciate when you talk. Now, where did the crazy come from? Is that just something you and grandpa's always said, or just a regional thing? Or is it just that
I
the brand office refuses to listen to what the actual folks say? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I've heard that term from other states, from other areas. So, you
And it's
know,
the same association and everything.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
but not everybody. It's almost like the overstep, knowing what that is.
Yeah.
So I think it's very localized, probably, most likely. But there's a lot of things that are like that aren't necessarily, they're a colloquialism instead of something that's really a true definition. But yeah, it's much easier to say that and understand what it is. And it's that V is connected at the with a point at the lower right corner of the U.
Right.
So it's a brand that's, as you'll put up, the U straight up and down, and the V is just connected at a 90 degrees with the open to the right, or crazy.
Yeah. What so and another thing, because this was a discussion topic when we were sitting in the local bar the other day when we were grabbing lunch. They up on the if you go to Shepherd, Montana, just to the north of it, there's a little steakhouse that is not too far away from the house, and we've always gone there for occasional dinner or something like that. And on the walls at the Feedlot Steakhouse is a bunch of brands. Some of them are clearly made up because they're ridiculous.
Yeah.
Others others are pretty cool because you can see, oh, I know that family. I've I've seen similar brands here or there and stuff like that. We saw one that was an S, and then we couldn't determine if it was a lazy or crazy S, because if you look at an S, it's the same upside down as it is the right way up. So
Yeah,
we
they're gonna call it lazy.
yeah, so we were trying to figure out the correct terminology. Is it actual lazy or is it crazy? And we were looking at it and we thought based off of the position of the bottom of the S, it was simply a lazy S. But
But
sometimes those brands aren't easy to see either, and you got to kind of look at it and study it and go, okay, how do I describe that? Because it's not always simple and straightforward.
well, and you could invert the S,
Right.
and that's what you would look at. You would look at an inverted S, which just means upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have an S if it was inverted, just upside down, but you could also have it. And I can't imagine it's going to make any difference at all, because a lazy S is going to look exactly like a crazy S. So you
Well,
just with a lazy, that's
I'm trying to
more.
think too. Would an inverted S look the same, or would it just be a
No,
reverse S?
no, because think of an S
Yeah.
being open to the right on the top of it,
Yeah, you're right.
and if you invert, that's going to be open to the left.
Yeah. So
And
that I guess
all
that's
inversion is a mirror image.
but that's the next question. When you do that, is it an inverted S or is it a reverse S?
Uh, Technically, they would say inverted is upside down from top to bottom. Reverse is from left to right or right to left.
But they're this with an S specifically. That's why I'm asking. It's the same. That's why.
Well, well, yeah, but think of it. Say a T.
Yeah.
A T reversed is still a T.
Yeah, you're right.
But if it's upside down, now it's inverted,
Yeah. Okay. I'll
right?
accept that answer because I
Uh,
mean, there's no other way to really take that because an S is so weird out of
okay,
all the
think
alphabet.
of an R. Here's a good example. You have an R that just standalone R, and you look at it, okay, it's an R. If you then tip it to the left, now it's a lazy R.
Right.
If it's standing up, but it's a mirror image,
It's a
now it's going to
reverse.
be it's going to be a reverse. Exactly. You could lay that down then and go a reverse inverted R.
Yep.
So you've got to look at those characters and see what they really are.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to uh, the terminology, knowing things. So there's the bar, there's we're looking. I didn't realize this until this morning. There's a Montana slash and a Wyoming slash, and they
Yeah.
go different directions based off of which one it is. There's I guess is it an inverted quarter circle? Is how the people get the rocking out of it.
Well, yeah, it's the bottom of a circle. Say it's the bottom third or bottom quarter
Yeah.
circle. So whenever you see quarter circle, you have to then describe bow down or bow up.
Yeah, so it'd be a bow down quarter circle with something on top of it would be a rocking character. Is
Yeah,
is the slang way of saying it.
same as crazy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Same as hay hook or hash knife. But yeah, your brother's brands, both of those brands are really nice brands. I would hope that he would keep a hold of those. I'm sure he will, the ZV for sure, but the U Crazy V, if he has a couple of kids, he could pass those on to them.
I mean, if he
And
doesn't want it, I'll take it. It's a nice
there you
brand.
go. You might want to make a side deal. He
Hmm.
can easily be bought for a like a case of beer. I think we proved that here the other day.
Yep, I did. I proved it. He took a cow tongue to the face for that one, but it was worth it.
Oh my God! Sometimes what he won't do. Anyway, what else have we got? Oh,
That's all I've got off the top of my head. I've got those six, but then there's one that is in the family that you're trying to get. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but
yeah, no, it's not a problem. I mean, it's one that old J.R. Sterling had, who is again grandpa's stepdad, and it fits beautifully for your mother and my cousin Robin Lemon was Robin Zire. She's J.R.'s granddaughter, so she's my cousin, but she's his blood granddaughter. Um, it's the L reverse hanging C,
and I'll
and
try and take a snip of that and I'll throw it up here too.
yeah,
It's an awesome looking brand. That is so open and
Yep.
It's easy. I can imagine that is probably an easy one-piece brand if you really wanted to, but
Yeah, you could with horses for sure. You could put that on.
okay.
And I know that JR, according to Grandpa, when he put that on something, and he ran mostly horses. I mean, tons. I mean, hundreds of horses. He liked to see that, and he wanted to see that from a distance. So he would put that thing on, and it would be huge on a horse. I was like, yeah, we don't
Yeah, I
do
don't
that
like
now.
that.
Yeah, we don't do that now because
Mm-mm.
we're not. These were a lot of wild horses. I mean, they were wild. So you want to be able to see them from a distance, but really a sweet, sweet brand. I've always thought like the L, and then if you extended a 7 on that, you'd almost look like a lightning bolt, and that's what
Yeah,
I'd
I
call
think
it.
I've seen a version of that. I don't think
You
it
probably have.
I don't
Yeah,
think the 7 hangs off of it though. That's the only thing.
yeah, it may not. It
Probably
very
for that reason because it does look like a lightning bolt.
yeah, yeah. But those that L reverse hanging C is your mother's initials. And so keeping that in the family, and then someday when we're both dead and you guys inherit those brands, you've got a little chunk of that there too that could go on to a grandkid or great grandkid, or however long you guys are gonna decide to keep doing this foolishness that we're trying to go broke. So,
Well, and I think
but you got to
that's
name your kid with a C,
oh yeah.
or an L and a or
Well,
L.
so I think there's something too is a good point to bring up with brands. And I think this is not particularly specific to Montana or Wyoming. It's really the anybody within agriculture, I would think. Brands, much like the land and the animals, typically try to stay with the family as much as possible. And that's very much like you've been saying multiple times throughout this conversation is a heritage thing and it's a tradition thing. And once you acquire those brands, unless they really don't mean a lot to you, people will fight to keep those in their family as long as they possibly can.
Oh, right, and unfortunately, I've seen arguments with family members over who's going to end up with a brand.
Yep.
I mean, that can cause some issues too. So, yeah, it's heritage is one thing. It's it all depends on what's important to you, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the only reason I dress in boots and a hat is because all of my ancestors did. I'd rather be wearing Converse and shorts like your brother, but no,
No, you wouldn't.
not true. Not true. I, I can remember we went down to the south and went on Chaco Canyon, and it said you better wear tennis shoes or something like that. I'm thinking, oh my God, this must be a horrible hike. So I went ahead and put tennis shoes on. And you remember this? We went down and we went through some of these really cool ruins there, um, and come back out of there about a half a day later. I got to the camper and I couldn't wait to get those stupid shoes off and get back my feet back in a pair of boots because they hurt from wearing them dumped down the shoes. I'm
Yeah,
just
you
not used to
definitely.
wearing
What's interesting too is you do end up getting more support in boots in your arch because I got a high arch and I tend to get
them.
better support in them too. But
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all right, the brands. Another thing I wanted to bring up, we've got horses and cows, and I don't know. Do they brand sheep? We've never done anything with sheep. I don't
Well, they don't really necessarily brand them. They mark them,
mark them.
and
Okay.
they put paint, kind of like brands, but numbers, and you just kind of keep your numbers. And I'm not that familiar with what they do with sheep, but I think they will number them or have something like a brand. But it's literally dipped in paint, and then they just paint the wool
Hmm,
on the side of
okay.
the.
Yeah, I don't really care. I just wanted a quick side bit, but
Yeah, I've never seen that. I've only seen that when I was a kid. I don't see that anymore because people aren't running their animals together like that on some grazing districts that I know of. Maybe they are, and run that country around Jordan. There's a lot of sheep in
yeah.
that area. So and maybe they do that. I don't know. That's a really good question.
Hmm. Anyway, we've talked branding horses and cattle. I would I'm gonna open this to you. The difference between irons on the two, and again, going back to hide thickness and stuff like that. So you want to kind of cover that?
Well, I mean, there's some minimum specs that you have to be a legal brand. Um, when the brand has to be at least 4 inches high on cattle, and so when you build a brand, cowhide is really thick. That's why we use it for a lot of things. And so you have to heat that iron up. It has to be at least 3/8 of an inch in width when it's done, and 4 inches high. So or we built all of our brands. We didn't go buy them. And so you're using 3/4 or 3/8 inch flat iron so that it will hold heat, and the heat will transfer as it's being cooled off while putting the brand on, and smoking the side of a cow. But that has to be heated up so that really, and it's a good indication. I think the brand office says it's rose red, and it is. It's kind of the iron needs to be evenly heated, and then you put that on, and that's, I mean, it's not easy to do in some cases. Depends on where it's at. We got a friend here that I helped him brand here a couple of years ago, and they're all standing there going, "Oh my God, this is a rib brand that goes on this calf, isn't?" And I've never done a rib brand. I'm afraid to mess it up. And
Always
I
done rib
looked
brands.
and I said, we do rib brands. That's what we have on for
Yeah.
most. Go, really? Would you brand this? I go, sure.
Yeah.
And they're right, because it will, when you put that brand on and
It
those calves move,
slides.
it'll slide. The hair is slick, so you have to put some pressure on it, but then you got to know when to let up, and it's kind of a feel for it. And Braden did most of the branding this spring, and he did a beautiful job. I mean, every one of those brands looked really, really nice. They scabbed over, they peeled, and then the hair grew back in on that spot. And all it is creating a scar, so it disrupts the hair layer so that you can see it. It creates a mark. And he did a really good job of branding them, but he didn't want to do the hip brand because can be a little tougher on your grandma's stuff, because that hay hook, it can be tough to put on, and your grandpa liked to put it really high up on the hip, and he did one piece and then roll it down, and it can be a pain. Goes on really well. Otherwise, if you drop it down a little bit, then it helps helps with that brand to application. But horses, whole different ball game. Their skin is about as thick as ours, and sometimes thinner. And so when you put that on, that I used I believe it was 1/4 inch. I think it was 1/4 inch or three. Yeah, it must be 1/4 inch rolled steel. So it's just just round stock, and then formed the letters, made the irons. And you don't have to have them very long. With a regular iron, you're looking at about 3 foot of handle out there, because that's creates a lot. It has to have a lot of heat to heat that iron. Well, with a horse brand, that's very thin, and it doesn't take much at all. And we branded a couple of horses when you were home here, 2 or 3 horses when you were home,
Yeah.
and it even going through some of that hair that's on them in a winter coat, you got to get it good and hot, but it doesn't take much to brand that horse and make that scar and cause that hair growth disruption. But if you remember, we tried something a little different. Braden come up with an idea, and he's right. We did this before, kind of out of a desperation, not desperation, but just a different way of doing it. And I had really forgot about it, I guess. Been so used to doing it other ways, but he just talked to the horse, petted him, covered his eye when it was time. And I walked up there and touched it, and it was smoking. And when that horse felt that heat and would jump away, it'd be just like you putting your hand on a hot stove or a pan. If you did that for a second, you're going to feel it, but then, you're going to take it away. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and God, it went really, really well on those horses. They branded up very nice. And so you want a brand on a horse to be really nice and not blotched and not smeared, and you want it to look aesthetically nice as you possibly can. So it doesn't take much to burn to that hide. You could burn through it, which would be ugly. Now you got a big wound if you did that. But really small irons, get them still good and hot, same color, but then the application, it just I let the horse tell me when that is hurts or starts to feel that heat, and then they'll try to jump away, and you pull it away and you're good to go.
Yeah. So I think those are good points. And then I think the last thing, we got about 10 minutes left. The reason why the brand office in Helena exists is for a reason. As much as we hate it, it's one of those things where, you know, horse stealing and cattle rustling are still a very real thing. It may not be nearly as prevalent as it used to be back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, but it's definitely a thing. And sometimes you may or may not find a calf missing and a horse or two gone. And it's important to have those brands, because if you've got those brands on, especially with ours as a symbol brand, it's harder to um, alter or mimic. So it's harder for them to steal them and try and take them. But you got to also get the brand on before the rustlers or their horse thieves get them, because otherwise, like you said, it's a slick calf or a slick colt, and you get a new brand on it, and you can't prove otherwise. So
Right, right. Well, and or somebody has a brand that can be altered pretty easily. I mean,
right,
I don't want to have something that's very simple, like you know, well, you take for instance the you won't find on your mother's brand that overstep with a quarter circle underneath of it, because all somebody would have to do is just do that,
right.
put a quarter circle, and then
Just
all of
throw
a
a
sudden,
third
hey,
iron on.
yeah, that brand is not, it's not an option. So, and on that location either. So there's a single quarter circle with a quarter circle underneath of it. So a standing quarter circle with a rocking quarter circle basically be what it would be. And that's available, but not with two of them. So if you alter a brand and do that, there was an old, I just remember that there's an old Bonanza uh, episode
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, they had like, it was a pine tree. It was a single deal and it had a three bars through it, a large one on the bottom, middle one, and a small one on top.
God, that's
Which was,
horrible.
oh, it'd be a horrible
That's a
brand, but
lot of blotching.
oh yeah, but this is Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
So, and so they had old Ben Cartwright. You know, they were missing some cattle. Couldn't figure out what was going on. It's like, oh, this doesn't seem right. But they had a neighbor who was hitting some hard times, and he had just registered, had a brand, and it was a dollar sign. Well, all he did was put a connection on the two, the top and bottom, and it looked like a dollar sign. So he was stealing these cattle by altering his brand.
Yeah.
Old, God, it was an old Bonanza, yeah, episode from 400 years ago, back when we had tube TVs. But anyway, so yeah, they serve a good purpose, and don't get me wrong, it's just some of the bureaucracy that goes on there is like, you know, you roll your eyes at it, and some of the people that even work for them, they roll their eyes at it and they go, yeah, that's Helena.
Yeah.
So, you know, it isn't, it's just because it makes common sense doesn't mean that they're going to go with it.
Well, and
Um,
I think to kind of throw an anecdote about out there about how important it is. When we were talking to Suzanne a couple weeks ago, you explained how there had been a couple loose horses with Grandpa and Grandma's hay hook on them, and they could identify by back tracing. You want to kind of throw that out there real quick?
yeah, well, and when I would think I was talking about that when we were branding these horses too. I was explaining that how
Right.
mom and dad had sold a couple horses to somebody in Bozeman, and several years before. And when they transferred these horse ownership papers based on the brand, they just give them a permanent change of ownership, but they still had our brand on them, or mom and dad's brand, in their name as an ownership, as a brand inspection. And the brand office, or the not the brand office, but the sheriff's office in Bozeman called the house one day and said, "Hey, do you own a couple of horses uh, that they're in Bozeman? They have this, you know, coloring, and they're two geldings, and they got this brand, which is a hay hook, both on them." And mom says, "No." Oh, she says, "You know what though? We sold some two horses that match that description to some people named such and such several years ago." And he said, "Well, they're in downtown Bozeman running around. They apparently got loose, and we're trying to find the owners." So they were able to track them by contacting. The only mark on that horse, or on those horses, was a hay hook, which came
Right.
right back to mom and dad, and then they could tell them who had sold that horse. But it shows you that their bureaucracy in Helena with the change of ownerships,
Clearly didn't work.
it clearly didn't work there. And that's really it's only a paper tiger anyway, because
Yeah.
they're just the purpose of that is that these people show this change of ownership to prove, oh no, these people sold me this horse. Their signatures on here that they
Right.
sold this horse to
That they
me.
didn't steal the horse.
Right. And so that's really good purpose for that. And there's no reason a brand office needs to keep track of every single change of ownership that's taken place in a computer so that they can track down who it is. That's not their job. They shouldn't have to do that. The means by which animals are wrestled anymore are just updated. Not a couple of years ago, there was a rancher up by us lost 65 head. They just disappeared one night of grown animals. And like, okay, 65 head, that would just about fill a full truck, a pot.
Yep.
That happens. People at rodeos, ropings, occasionally you'll see them post something on Facebook. Your mom shows me somebody stole a horse with a saddle. They're just walking by, they see it tied up, they just load it in their outfit and go.
Yep.
So that's why we brand. It's very, very seldom have we ever sold anything that wasn't branded, and it was only on request when somebody bought a colt, and you say, we're going to brand this animal, and we will get. And they say, well, I'd rather not brand it. Okay, I'll sell it to you unbranded. You'll get the inspection on the horse proving it's yours, a bill of sale.
Yeah.
But that's at your risk unless you put your own brand on it. Most people don't. Most of them don't have a brand.
Yeah, there's no way I would do that.
Yeah. No, me either. And no, I wouldn't do that as well. So the other part of that is I might go ahead and leave their brand on it since it's branded, have a bill of sale for it on our own, a brand inspection, and not brand it with a second brand. I want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that.
That makes sense.
Anyway, yeah, it's got more sophisticated. So brands are important.
Yeah. So with that, that's kind of our day with brands, and I'll make sure to get everything included in here so people can see it. We appreciate everybody joining us. Happy New Year. And with that,
I think that we'll just pay you or thank you till you're better paid.